Ms. Malabonguga, very good evening to you. Thank you for being with us. So, despite pleas and campaigns to try and bring an end to gender-based violence, infuriatingly, we're seeing a rise in the numbers during these global lockdowns. It is upsetting, but not entirely unexpected.
Yes, gender-based violence is actually a shadow pandemic. It was there before COVID-19. It has been increased during this period, and it will continue after COVID-19. So we want to make sure that the response we're having now must be sustained even beyond COVID-19. But there's a need now to put in urgent measures. One thing we're asking all governments around the world to do is actually to declare the services that are needed by women who are affected by violence essential services. They must do that upfront, and they must talk about this issue every time when they are doing a briefing, so that in every country, the nation is aware that we are having this crisis as well.
And you described gender-based violence as a shadow pandemic. I'm wondering if it's not time then for the global declarations on the issue to take much stronger language and much stronger action beyond this moment of this pandemic.
Definitely. We are hoping that this moment, and this is the feeling we also share with the WHO, has to be a moment where we bring violence against women to the forefront. And as we are fighting to win against COVID-19, we actually also plan to fight to win and to fight for the decreasing of violence against women. We are calling for the expansion of services, the financing of services that are being provided by women. We are concerned that not too many governments around the world who are announcing the packages that are relevant for COVID-19 are actually announcing the interventions and the investments that they are making to fight gender-based violence, and we are urging them to do that.
Just on that, because what's likely to spur on a lot of women who are in these abusive relationships to stay is the fact that a lot of them are likely to become more financially dependent on their abusers because of the job losses that we're expecting, global economies about to really go to ruins at this stage. So how do governments begin to do what you're saying in terms of structuring law and policies that make it possible for them financially to step out of those relationships?
One of the calls we are making, and I'm not saying that this addresses all of the needs that you have highlighted, is to make sure that the financial and the economic stimulus that governments are announcing are also targeted to women. We are targeting women in the informal sector. In South Africa, for instance, our own UN Women here is working with government about exactly targeting women in the informal sector. In Senegal, government is targeting to buy rice, for instance, from the producers who are women, so that they can make sure that women have a sustainable income in this time of lockdown, and at the same time they are feeding the nation. In some countries, in some of our Asian countries and counterparts, women have been given contracts to produce PPE so that they could remain viable, financially viable during this time. So we have to think outside the box.
And in your writing on this issue, you said, I quote, "We must not only survive the coronavirus, but emerge renewed, with women as a powerful force at the center of recovery." A lot of women who've either experienced abuse or are currently living through it will say, we've heard much of that before. Why should they have any hope that world leaders and leaders here in South Africa will take any different action to make that a reality?
You know, giving up is actually not an option. We have to fight for women's needs to be addressed as far as gender-based violence is concerned. We also, at the same time, have to fight to secure work opportunities for women, because this is one way that will enable women to survive. We also are calling for women's role in the health sector to be appreciated and recognize, because there are 70% of the health workers who are actually shouldering this crisis, working shoulder to shoulder with their male counterpart and risking infection and being in the forefront. And we also want to use this time to highlight the need to integrate women at leadership level and to appreciate the contribution that women are making. We also not we are also concerned, actually, that men are actually dying at a much higher rate than women. 70% of the people who are dying out of in COVID-19 are men. We are concerned. Does it mean that men do not take care of themselves? Is there something that we should be addressing there? Because gender discrimination goes both ways. We don't want men to be discriminated and find themselves in these situations where they will die in high numbers. But also, we also want to make sure that we reinforce the place of women and the appreciation of the service they provide.
Last question, and very briefly, please. In South Africa, one of the other issues that we've been talking about around the issue of gender-based violence and the cases that we've seen so far has been around alcohol and how it contributes to the violence in society. The police minister, Begicele, saying, in fact, we may have to look at further restrictions on the sale of alcohol even post the pandemic. What's your position?
Well, we are concerned because there's actually a correlation between high levels of violence, especially domestic violence, and consumption of alcohol. We actually have an initiative here in South Africa together with the Bishops' Conference, where we are looking at taverns and making sure that tavern owners take the responsibility to educate their patrons about alcohol and gender-based violence. And we've been tracking what has happened since we've started that program. And in families where the patrons have been violent, we've actually been receiving feedback that they are seeing a bit of change, especially where we also collaborate with the police. Also, in that particular community, which is in East Rand, we've also seen that we've been able to compile a database of people who are on ARVs. And at this time, these are the people who are targeting with food parcels because they are more immune deficient.
Thank you so much for speaking to us tonight from New York.